Hey BookTube, it's Sarah and welcome back to my channel, The Book Bag. So today I'm going to be talking about How Moon Fuentez Fell in Love with the Universe by Raquel Vasquez Galiland. So this is a YA contemporary novel that focuses on Moon, obviously, Moon Fuentez, as she goes on tour with her twin sister who is like an religious Instagram influencer, and Moon is going to be her photographer, and she's kind of felt her whole life that she is like the ugly twin, and she's used to being kind of in the background, but she's like, sure, I'll go with you, whatever, just another day being the unnoticed one. The guy who made this, it's not actually Instagram, it's called, I think, Photogram, but it's like the Instagram equivalent. So the creator of this app is the one organizing this tour, and so Moon starts to fall for his grumpy brother. So it's a really sweet romance, coming of age kind of book, and in it they talk about pizza. But more specifically, they talk about putting honey on pizza. So I thought I would try putting honey on pizza while discussing this book. We're gonna see how it goes. I'm the kind of person who likes pineapple on my pizza, so I think this has a pretty high chance of success, but I don't know. We'll just give it a shot. I'm also the person who puts like maple syrup on my eggs, so sounds right up my alley. So we actually went to Domino's and we got 2 kinds of pizza. We got the pepperoni and tomato pizza, and then we got my favorite Hawaiian pizza, which is just ham and pineapple. So I'm gonna try a little bit of each with honey, and then I also thought it'd be kind of fun to add some like sriracha on it too, to kind of temper the sweetness a little bit, add some complexity to the taste. I say like I know what I'm talking about. So I think what we're going to do is try 1 piece of each, stick them on this plate so I can get rid of these big boxes. Try and get like small pieces, because if this isn't good, I don't want to ruin like a ginormous piece of pizza. That was way too difficult to say. I never thought I would have to try and figure out the best way to cut a piece of pizza into smaller pieces, but I think we're just gonna make 2 smaller slices of pizza. We have 4 mini slices of pizza now, and this plate looks like it was attacked by a murderer. It's fine. So we're just gonna drizzle like a small amount of honey on these. I don't want a lot. I'm sure as soon as I say that I will get a huge amount of honey. So we'll just do normal, like just plain honey on these ones. Like that. And the same for you, just a nice little drizzle. Come on. This is more difficult than you would expect. Or maybe exactly as difficult as you expect, I don't know. Okay, so there's honey on this one. And then we're gonna mix a little bit of honey and a little bit of sriracha in this little bowl here. I don't know, that much honey with like a teensy weensy bit of sriracha. This is our sad baby sriracha that, because we only need like a month's worth of sriracha before we move. Tiny bit of sriracha because I am white, in case y'all didn't know this. And we'll just mix her up real nice. Get a nice sriracha honey drizzle. Now we will put it on here. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm a dummy. This one. Put it on this one. This one, come on. Okay. Now they have been drizzleified. I'm supposed to be talking about the book too. Okay, so I read this recently, and I think I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads because it was really good. It was really beautifully written. The author was actually, yeah, she has an MFA in poetry, so there's some like really beautiful lines. It's very like lyrically written, so that was like really nice. I'm gonna try this. I don't know, it tastes like honey on pizza. It's fine. Like, that's Hawaiian. Let's try the pepperoni tomato one. I think it does add a little bit more to the pepperoni one. Like, the Hawaiian already has the pineapple, which is sweet, so it just is kind of like extra sweetness. But the pepperoni doesn't have any sweetness on it. So that does help augment it a bit. Yeah, it's pretty good. I would have it again on the pepperoni, I think. So I think that shows us that you only need one sweet thing at a time on a piece of pizza. And then we will try the ones with the sriracha. I thought I could talk about the book and do this at the same time, but it's not possible. So we'll talk about the book after. Pretty good on the pepperoni one too. Yeah, the sriracha adds that little bit of like garlic and spice, which is nice. And we'll try the Hawaiian one, which has like 2 ends on it. The sriracha's good on this one. Okay. Here's my verdict. I think the honey by itself is better on the pepperoni, but the honey with sriracha is better on the Hawaiian. I also think that I would maybe like it a little bit better if it was maple syrup instead of honey. I know that sounds like the most Canadian thing ever, but like when I'm eating it, the honey just has that really like cloyingly sweet smell that has it's a little like off-putting when you're eating pizza and you smell that and you're like, what? So maybe like maple syrup on pizza. But definitely with the sriracha's like a lot better. Moon's not entirely crazy, but it's not like a life-changing thing that I'm gonna do all the time. Anyways, back to the book. So I really love Moon Fuentez as a main character. She's very relatable. Her story's like kind of sad. As we get through the book, we kind of like unfold different like trauma from her past, and like her dad killed himself. Her mom like treats her awfully. Her sister kind of like enables their mother and is treated terribly by their mother in a different way. I wasn't so sure if I was gonna like the aspect of her sister being like a religious influencer all that much, but I think it worked really well. I think the author like managed to kind of untangle the pieces of like how religion can be harmful and stuff, because her sister and her mom do use a lot of religious rhetoric to hurt Moon and to like explain why they act so terribly towards her all the time. So I thought it was really nice to see that kind of like dismantling of like the Christian beliefs and like, oh, I'm such a good Christian. Like there's one part in here where Moon's sister, Star, is going after the guy that Moon likes because he's missing a hand, and she's like, oh, it's like my Christian duty to show him he's still lovable or whatever, or that she kind of wants to like date him as get likes almost. Like she's like, if I date this poor like man without a hand, then people will be like, oh, she's such a good Christian, like she loves him even though he's broken, which is obviously incredibly messed up way to think. Like, what the hell? So I do like that it showed that kind of more sinister side of kind of like mass Christianity for like social media purposes and stuff. I am not religious, so just a little disclaimer in there. There was also a line in here that I thought summed up the message of the book really well, where her aunt says, you can only save yourself. This doesn't mean others can't help you, but if you're looking for them to give you your worth, to give your life meaning, they will always fail you. So I really liked that. I thought that message really was like through the whole book of Moon trying to like be more confident. You know, she started out just being like, oh, I'm just like the shadow here to take pictures, but as her own art like grew and other people liked her for her self-confidence grew and others helped her on that path, but it was ultimately like her own self-acceptance that set her free from her expectations and stuff. I also really did like the descriptions of food in this. Her and the love interest Santiago cook a lot together, which was very cute. They had lots of like delicious sounding food, not just honey on pizza. They had like all these omelets and stuff, which was very sweet. And they had that kind of Like, he's really grumpy and she's pretty sweet, a little bit sassy, a little sarcastic sometimes, but they had that really fun dynamic of him being like very like stoic and like and her being like, man, lighten up. What's got your knickers in a twist, you know? I thought the romance in here was like very sweet as well. Had a good kind of, not quite enemies to lovers, but like kind of rivals to lovers sort of thing going on, which is really nice. The book is also like very sex positive. One of the reasons that Moon's mother is so upset with her is that she had slept with people before marriage, and her mother was like, that's unacceptable. Oh my god. I would say that this book is definitely for like slightly older teens, probably like 16, 17 and up, just because there is a fair amount of discussion about sex, and not super graphic sex scenes, but it's not just like a fade to black. There's also a talk about La Raíz, which is like this curse that's supposed to have been put on her family line every time that they have, or like after the first time they have sex, they have these like bugs, like insects, like moths and stuff, who like congregate to them. And so Moon has this just happen to her every now and then. So there's that little element of magical realism to it, which is like a cool little touch. Also, Moon is like, she makes her own tarot cards. Her aunt teaches her like various methods of divination. So there is a little bit of that kind of new age sort of stuff going on as well, which is pretty cool. I think my only real complaint about the book, which is like barely a complaint, is just how much she talks about how ripped the love interest is. Like every time she talks about him, she's like, his body is made of rocks, oh my god. And I'm like, calm down, it's fine. You'll survive this. Yeah, I don't know. It was fine. I just thought it was a little overdone that every time she saw him, she's like, oh my god, and his pecs are like ginormous and his arms were basically like bowls, and you're like, chill your bones, girl. There was a little bit of the like miscommunication trope as well, of, you know, one of them saying something, the other one taking it the wrong way, and then like a huge fight, or like they just like walk off. But I thought it was better done in this book than a lot of them, because a lot of the miscommunication was due to their own previous traumas. So, you know, he would say something, she would hear it as something that like her mother or her sister would have said to her, and so she obviously like overreacts because it's very triggering for her, whereas he just meant it as like a compliment, or, you know, just at face value, where she would like read into it, and vice versa. So I thought that was also a very interesting way of spinning that kind of trope, because usually I hate that miscommunication where they're like, if you just like asked for like one clarification, you'd be fine. But here it did feel more like an extension of both of their like past traumas, and like probably both have some sort of like PTSD or something. So it felt much more realistic that they would react in a bigger way than most people would to certain sentences. We're like, oh, obviously he meant it like this, but because of the way people have treated her in the past, she would not read it like that. I think it also touched on some interesting aspects of different ways of like harming yourself, kind of. Like, she has this friend who she had hooked up with once, and who she would text when she wanted to feel better about herself, because he would basically like objectify her. So she'd like send him nudes when she was feeling bad to get that like validation, which is obviously not like a great way to get actual validation, and that's not a relationship where they actually care about you. So that was something also that I feel like doesn't really get talked about a lot in teen books. I think, yeah, it's just got like a lot of very interesting, like complex ideas about being a teenager and having sex for the first time, or the fourth or fifth time, especially when you grow up in a household where it's very religious and they're like, no sex, you can have sex till you're married and then you'll be fine. Or that her mom had expressed in here that the only way it's okay for a woman to have sex is basically if it's marital rape, where the man has to like force you after you're married. There are a few things in here that might be triggering for some people, but I do think it's a very important book with lots of nuanced and complicated discussions of heavy themes, but it also has this really lovely way of looking at things. The writing's gorgeous. The romance is like very sweet. And I was really rooting for Moon. She was having a rough time and I was like, girl, you can do it. You're a very talented artist. People like you for you, and you got it. You go get that hot guy and just go, be happy and love yourself. So I would highly recommend reading this. I know that it was the Indigo Staff Pick of the Month for September, and that the committee who had picked it all were related to Moon in some way. They even started like a hashtag, We Are Moon, because they all saw themselves in Moon, and a lot of them had said they wished that they had this book when they were growing up. So I think it's a good story for older teens who are, struggling with like body image and their like sexuality. Also, on the sex positive note, Moon is a little bit horny in this book, which I think is a change from what we normally get in teen books, where teenage girls aren't allowed to have any sort of like sexual urges or anything, but this book does not shy away from the fact that Moon has had sex before and wants to have sex again and wants to have sex with like this specific guy, which is, I think, a good thing to kind of normalize in that transition age of like, coming out of high school, going into university. I don't know when people start having sex. Beats me. I do think it was nice to acknowledge that like women can have sexual feelings too, and it's not just dudes being horn dogs. So yeah, this was a really good book. I really loved it a lot. I think Moon is an excellent character, very unique. She's also really funny. She has a lot of good one-liners. The banter between her and Santiago is really hilarious. And I would highly recommend you go pick this up and check it out. And I will probably actually go read this author's other book, Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginnings, because I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you try out pizza with honey on it, because I would be curious to see if other people like it, or if I'm just a freak who likes to put sweet things on my savory foods. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. And go get your rocks off.